In 1990, a top-secret mission took place. Polish spies went to Iraq to help 6 American agents who were from the CIA and DIA. The American agents were watching Iraqi soldiers, trying to see if a war was about to start. You might be thinking, why would the CIA ask Poland for help? After all, back in 1990, Poland was seen as an enemy because of the Cold War. The Berlin Wall had just fallen, the Soviet Union was still around, and Poland had not yet chosen Lech Walesa as its first democratic president. So what happened? On August 2, 1990, Saddam Hussein sent tanks into Kuwait. At that time, the 6 American agents were secretly working near the Iraq-Kuwait border. But when the Iraqi army came, the agents found themselves trapped behind enemy lines. They couldn't ask the US Embassy for help because they were working undercover. Both Polish and US reports say that these agents were trying to figure out what the Iraqi soldiers were planning to do before the attack on Kuwait. Finding themselves without alternatives, the 6 American operatives beat a hasty retreat to Baghdad, merging with a sea of other foreigners also on the move. They moved from one location to another, a dangerous dance to elude the ever-vigilant Iraqi intelligence. Their situation rapidly escalated from precarious to perilous. Though they had not yet been taken captive or directly threatened by the Iraqis, the danger of their discovery loomed large. The high-stakes scenario of having CIA and DIA officers potentially captured in Iraq sent ripples of concern to the top echelons of the US government. The matter was elevated to the National Security Council discussions, and CIA Director William Webster was instructed to update the White House with every twist and turn of the operation. The predicament intensified as the CIA found itself cornered. Without their own boots on the ground, they were forced to lean on their allies for assistance in extracting their stranded officers. But after extending feelers to several European intelligence agencies, including those of Great Britain and France, they were met with rejection, largely due to the high-risk nature of the operation and the escalating volatility in Kuwait. With their options dwindling, they were forced to consider an unconventional, even audacious choice: Poland. Despite their history as Cold War adversaries, the Poles would draw less attention. Involving Poland had another strategic advantage: the presence of several thousand Polish citizens working on construction projects in Iraq offered an excellent cover for Polish intelligence agents. This factor proved vital in successfully navigating the American operatives out of Iraq undetected. The subsequent developments took a turn for the extraordinary, a mix of audacious strategy and sheer boldness. The Polish Minister of Internal Affairs and the first chief of the UOP, the Polish intelligence, Krzysztof Kozłowski, entrusted this high-stakes mission to Gromysław Czempiński, a former Polish operative who had prior experience working in the United States and a history of engagements against Western intelligence services. Czempiński was renowned for his innovative approach to seemingly unresolvable dilemmas. With little time to spare, he dove into the task, operating from Warsaw and tirelessly trying to carve out an escape route for the 6 trapped American agents. The initial step was to secure a safe haven for the Americans. This was accomplished by sheltering them at a Polish construction site situated just outside of Baghdad. However, with each passing day, planning the mission became an increasingly complicated task. The circumstances in Iraq were in a state of constant flux. Saddam Hussein, Iraq's president at the time, promptly enforced stringent travel restrictions on diplomats and set up military checkpoints on all major routes following his invasion into Kuwait in 1990. The only foreigners allowed any degree of mobility were those engaged in government contracts, a category which conveniently included a number of Poles. As both Washington and Warsaw wrestled with the bureaucratic handles in formulating a plan to free the 6 American agents from Iraq, a bold proposal emerged from the Polish side: deploy their own intelligence officers directly into Baghdad to lead the operation. The decision, both stunning and awe-inspiring to the Americans, underscored the boldness of the plan and the high risk associated with the mission. When the Polish officers finally reached Baghdad to carry out the rescue, they were greeted with a heart-rending sight. The American agents, The lives they were entrusted to save were in a dreadful condition, physically and emotionally drained from weeks of hiding. The danger was real, and the Polish officers were aware of the urgent need to evacuate the Americans from Iraq swiftly. Even though the Polish officers had formerly been Warsaw Pact spies, they felt a sense of duty towards their one-time adversaries. As one officer later explained, "Most of us weren't ideologues, but professionals. Also, these guys were CIA operatives. Being caught in Iraq meant certain death. We saw them as our peers and felt an obligation to assist them." The realization that being apprehended in Iraq would invariably lead to the execution of the Americans underscored the high stakes and left no room for mistakes. Wasting no time, the Polish officers embarked on their task, equipping the Americans with falsified passports from a Slavic country. However, with one glaring issue cropped up. The Americans were unable to even pronounce the names on the passports, a mistake that could jeopardize their disguise. As a precaution, they were instructed to maintain silence in the presence of Iraqis. The Polish officers finally embarked on a complex mission across Baghdad, scrutinizing the city's routes and checkpoints to determine the safest escape path from Iraq. They experimented with various disguises, playing the parts of drivers, journalists, or diplomats. But with each disguise came new risks, as danger was a relentless shadow at every turn. Despite the overwhelming stress, the American operatives maintained discipline, cooperating fully with their Polish rescuers. They were aware that their lives were now entwined with these officers who, just a few months prior, were adversaries in the Cold War. However, past conflicts had to be put aside, replaced by total trust in their unexpected allies. After enduring weeks of anxiety, constantly bracing for potential discovery, a breakthrough finally came. The Polish team received a signal that they needed to act fast, as inquiries had started to circulate. To ensure the success of the plan, they needed the assistance of Polish civilians on the ground. Among them, a certain Polish technician caught their eye. Just a few weeks earlier, on August the 18th, 1990, this technician had led a convoy of 13 buses filled with Vietnamese, Filipinos, Germans, and Poles towards Iraq's border post at Erbil. Their destination was Jordan. Upon reaching the border, however, they were met with scenes of pandemonium as thousands were trying to escape the country. In the heat of the chaos, the technician took a stroll to clear his mind and inadvertently discovered a tiny gap in the border fence. Drawing upon his technical skills, he untwisted the wires, creating a significant opening. Within an hour, he had successfully guided 430 individuals from the 13 buses through this hole in the fence, leading them out of Iraq and into Jordan. News of his courageous act quickly spread within the Polish community in Iraq, catching the attention of the Polish intelligence officers tasked with the American agent's rescue. They approached him and enlisted his help, to which he agreed. After several intense weeks, the Polish officer heading the escape operation arranged their exit. He sent a cable to Warsaw, intended to be forwarded to Washington, updating them about their planned departure with the Americans. However, a last-minute reversal arrived due to the absence of exit visas from the Iraqi government in the Americans' forged passports. Washington insisted on procuring the required visas, a process that would further delay their escape by several weeks. Undeterred by the setback, the officer continued his search for a solution and readied for another attempt. On the scheduled day of the operation, at 2 a.m., the Polish officer relayed another message to Washington, informing the U.S. government of their planned move at 5:30 a.m. However, a response arrived at 5 a.m., instructing them to abort the mission, this time due to objections from the CIA regarding the presence of the Polish officer. Regardless, the Polish civilians adamantly refused to move forward without their trusted leader. Consequently, the Polish contingent chose to disregard the CIA's message. As dawn broke, the 6 American agents, together with their Polish guide, crammed into a convoy of vehicles and set off towards the north, Turkey, a journey of just over 300 miles. During the drive, the technician, in line with his Polish intelligence counterparts, attempted to teach the Americans in one of the cars to pronounce the Slavic names on their passports correctly. However, he found no success. The Americans' thick Midwestern accents provoked worry in him about encountering a Polish-speaking Iraqi. While it might sound unlikely, thousands of Iraqis had studied in Poland during the 1970s and 1980s, making this a plausible risk. a risk that could jeopardize the entire operation if it materialized. This worry soon manifested itself as they were just north of Mosul. At a military checkpoint, an Iraqi officer approached one of the vehicles and started inspecting the passports. To the technician's astonishment, the officer began conversing in flawless Polish, expressing his delight at running into his dear friends. The technician's heart pounded in his chest as he jumped out of the car, quickly adhering to Slavic customs. He greeted the security officer with 3 kisses on the cheeks and a hearty hug. They exchanged light-hearted banter, complimenting the officer's command of the Polish language and discussing trivial matters such as the weather and global affairs. When the technician suggested the officer should check their passports, he kindly brushed it off, stating that there was no need for such formalities among friends. They could proceed without any hindrances. That was a close call, but the path to the border remained fraught with peril. The possibility of running into another Polish-speaking Iraqi forced the team to take more drastic measures. As they neared the Turkish border, the Polish officers ordered the convoy to stop at a secluded stretch of highway. He walked over to the technician's car, retrieved bottles of Johnny Walker Red from his bag, and handed them to the American passengers. "Drink," he said. The idea was to make them appear visibly intoxicated, a ploy to mirror the Iraqi stereotype of drunk Eastern European workers. It was hoped that this ruse might smooth their transition into Turkey. However, this plan did not succeed. Whether due to their rigorous training or the rising tension, the 6 American agents and their Polish guides remained entirely sober as they approached the border crossing between Iraq and Turkey at sunset. At the border, things unfolded with surprising ease. Even though the Polish officer recommended that the Americans stroll leisurely to the Turkish side, where Polish officials would be ready to welcome them, they chose not to heed his advice. They sprinted like track stars, the technician amusingly recounted later in an interview. The operation's success was a remarkable triumph for Polish intelligence, proving their capability in conducting intricate, high-risk missions. Additionally, it fostered stronger relations between the US and Poland, creating avenues for future collaboration in fields such as counterterrorism and intelligence exchange. Despite the escalating tensions and volatility in the Middle East at the time, the Polish operatives accomplished the mission without suffering any losses, thereby demonstrating their expertise in intelligence gathering and covert operations. Not only did they successfully rescue the 6 American agents, but the Poles also secured classified maps of military facilities and strategic locations in Baghdad. These proved invaluable for Operation Desert Storm. In gratitude for Poland's aid, the US government coordinated with its allies to forgive half of Poland's $33 billion foreign debt. A deal to this effect was finalized with the Paris Club, a group of creditors, on April the 21st, 1991. If you enjoyed this video, please support us by hitting the like button. Stay updated with our latest videos by subscribing to our channel.